Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Reese, your 2020 Education Committee Chairman, and welcome to the August edition of our monthly education webinar. I know many of us are eager to get back to networking in person, but until it is safe to do so, we will continue to offer monthly seminars virtually, and this will be our plan at least through November. Before we get started, I would like to thank our annual corporate sponsors and our education sponsors for their generous support. Please offer a word of gratitude the next time you speak with any of our sponsors. I would also like to thank our program coordinators, Emily Ferguson, Tremaine Thomas, and Fernanda Blanco, for putting together a great program, as well as our panel members for joining us today. Now let me introduce today's moderator, Kara Cooper, Economic Development Project Manager for the Atlanta Beltline. Kara brings over 15 years of economic development and marketing experience to the Atlanta Beltline as their Economic Development Project Manager. She executes economic development initiatives to empower existing Beltline businesses and markets the corridor as a premier business destination. She developed and executes the organization's business engagement strategy, targeting the more than 6,000 businesses around the corridor. In 2019, she implemented a pilot program to partner Beltline businesses with artists to construct artistic facades that catalyze distressed commercial corridors in Southeast and Southwest Atlanta. Prior to ABI, Kara has helped lead business development efforts for DeKalb County, the Cumberland CID, and the Georgia State Rialto Center for the Arts. Kara is a member of the Board of Managers for the Annie E. Casey Foundation's Pittsburgh Yards Development Site in historic Southwest Atlanta, and she is a graduate of Leadership Atlanta's LEAD program, Urban Land Institute Center for Leadership, the Atlanta Regional Commission's Regional Leadership Institute, and New Leaders Council. She is quite a busy person. On a personal note, I'd just like to say that my wife Carol and I experience the Beltline every week, and we just love the vibe out there. While there are many things going on right now which are challenging us, even dividing us both nationwide and in our city, the Beltline is having an opposite effect. It brings people together. It is the heart and soul of Atlanta, and it is the biggest catalyst for improving what authentic community is in our city. I can't wait to hear what Kara and our panel have to say about their experiences. With that, I will turn it over to her to introduce our panel and start the program. Kara?
Thank you, Scott. I'm very excited to join you today. We have a great panel. I want to start by introducing Ashani Ahmad, who in January joined the Atlanta Affordable Housing Fund as its first executive director. Supported by the fund's board of directors and investment committee, Ashani leads the charge in raising $25 million and identifying opportunities to invest low-cost capital into transformative housing projects, affordable housing solutions for Metro Atlantans. And in her 20-year career, she's previously worked with the Atlanta Neighborhood Development Partnership and in other cities such as Cincinnati and Boston. We're also joined today by Paul Rollet Jr. Paul is president of Rollet Property Partners. He's an Atlanta native, you know, those rare birds, and he has over 25 years of experience in the Atlanta commercial real estate market. As a broker, he has been heavily involved in the in-town industrial market and the emerging loft office market. He has been involved in over $100 million worth of real estate transactions, either as a broker or an owner over the past 25 years. We're also excited to have one of our Beltline tenants, Beltline businesses on the panel today. Nick Purdy is president of Wild Heaven Brewery, whose newest location is on the Beltline's West Side Trail. Offering beers inspired by the traditions of Europe and the innovations here in America, Wild Heaven seeks to raise the profile of beer in the South. Before Wild Heaven, Nick spent 15 years as the founding publisher of the award-winning pop culture media company Paste, called America's Finest Music Magazine by the Wall Street Journal. Nick's background is in marketing and media and includes stints in advertising as well as consulting with Deloitte. So we also have 3 UGA grads, which is really exciting. Hopefully will bring us some luck in our upcoming small football season. So very excited about that. So anyway, we're really glad to have you here today. To Scott's point, the Beltline is a project that is transforming the city. And so I'm going to kick off our time today just with an update on what's happening, what's now, and what's next around the Beltline. And are y'all seeing my screen? Great. All right. Wonderful. So I wanted to start with just a lovely picture of the fall to wish us all some fall weather right around the corner. It's certainly something I'm looking forward to. Sorry. As you can see, I think it's always good when we first start talking about the Beltline to really see how its location orients within the greater metro Atlanta region. So the entire Beltline is within Fulton County and the city of Atlanta. As you can see, well within the city of Atlanta, going through 45 neighborhoods. And the project was the birth child, as many of you know. It was part of Ryan Gravel's senior year thesis at Georgia Tech to connect 4 old and active railroad corridors to really just inspire the city to reclaim those corridors that had once divided. I mean, many times these railroads were dividing neighborhoods along race and class. And so this was an opportunity, he thought, for the city to reclaim those old corridors and use them to reconnect 45 neighborhoods, Bankhead to Buckhead, West Midtown to Boulevard Heights, with this trail and transit corridor. Our mission is to be a catalyst for equitable, inclusive, and sustainable life here in the city. We also have done a lot of work over the past 2 years, hiring a Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer, and we are committed to legacy residents, new residents, business owners, regardless of age, gender, race, ethnicity, ability, or income, to benefit from the project as a whole. I want to make sure that everybody really knows how the Beltline's funded. So we're funded as Ryan Gravel was shopping this idea with Atlanta City Council President Kathy Woolard. They came up with this idea to fund the project through a tax allocation district. And on this map, you can see it in the orange. So it's basically any commercial corridors, go back one. Any commercial corridors around the Beltline are in orange, and those are the ones that a baseline of tax revenue was created, and anything over and beyond that is now split between not only Fulton County, City of Atlanta, and Atlanta Public Schools, but also with the Beltline. But also, just to note, I serve the businesses, the 6,000 businesses within the entire planning area. And that is this gray area. It's a half a mile to each side of the Beltline track. And that's also where our planning team and community engagement team help neighborhoods go through master planning efforts and then shepherd that through the city. So within this donut, if you will, there's about 160,000 of Atlanta residents who live there and 6,000 businesses. As I mentioned, that TAD funding that is created is split between us and the Fulton County, City of Atlanta, and the public schools. It flows through Invest Atlanta to us at Atlanta Beltline, Inc., and we are the implementation agency of the project. And then our sister nonprofit, which many of you have probably worked with as well, is Atlanta Beltline Partnership. And they're our 501c3 that really focuses on the activation of programming, empowerment around housing empowerment. We're working with them a lot on workforce development initiatives just to get people more engaged with the project, as well as to recruit philanthropy dollars. So our tax allocation district legislation also really legislated mandates and goals that we are set to accomplish by 2030. And so these are all those things. We think of transit, we think of the trails, but we're also helping to create parks, do environmental cleanup. And then, as I said, my department, economic development, we are really charged with supporting private investment and helping to catalyze new jobs all around the corridor. Housing is critical, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, as well as our public art program and a lot of other initiatives that we do. So from that economic development perspective, we are helping to recruit businesses. This is some of our major companies. You'll get to hear from one today that is also on the Beltline. We do a lot of business engagement. We help connect businesses to resources and are always looking for ways to work with developers, to work with the community where their developments are located, bring in new resources to our businesses. And again, at the end of the day, it's about creating jobs to help with that piece of the affordability puzzle. I also wanted to talk a little bit more about housing, because I know affordable housing is something we wanted to focus on today. And so from the Beltline perspective, we do have a housing department. We are legally mandated to that tax allocation district goal of about 5,600 units. We're about a third of the way to satisfying that goal. And we have about 900 additional units in the pipeline coming hopefully in the next few years. And so part of the time that I'm going to spend in a few minutes is to also walk around the Beltline and talk about some of these projects that are happening from a private investment on the commercial and the real estate side. So in thinking about construction, I think one of the most exciting things to me right now working at the Beltline is a lot of times in the past, we've just built, focused on one piece of the trail, and that we are going to build out, that 3-mile segment. But right now we've really pivoted to where we're working all around the corridor to build out several different segments. So as I mentioned, if you'll think of the Beltline as a clock, we're going to start up here on the north and northeast side and just kind of talk through real briefly what construction we have, so you know what's next for the Beltline, as well as what we're seeing in our private investment tracking. So on the north side, you've got a good picture so you can see up here where that is in relation to the project. We have the piece of the trail called the hairpin line under construction behind Ansley Mall in partnership with Georgia Power. So to orient you, this is Armour Yards up here. So that will be a direct connection to Armour Yards. And then Lindbergh MARTA Station and the Rubenstein project that is going to be happening up there is just a little to the north, but within the planning area. This is also the convergence of Path 400, the Peachtree Greenway, and the Beltline, not to mention the Lindbergh MARTA station. So it's just an incredibly important connection point for all of these major transit and trail projects. So we're really excited to be working on this piece of the trail and hope for that to be done in the coming months. And that is a picture of where we are currently headed towards Ansley Mall and some of the work we've been doing out there. If we go a little bit south, we would get to the East Side Trail, which many of you know. We've done some major upgrades. We've had security enhancements, new lighting, new cameras, and then completed the East Side Trail extension all the way down to Madison Yards, and the trail continues down to Bill Kennedy Way, which is where the Beltline crosses I-20. From a private development perspective, we are really excited that 750 Ralph McGill is under construction. It'll be adjacent to the old Fourth Ward Park, about $1 billion in development, mixed use, new office. So that is a really exciting project. And then at the convergence of the East Side Trail to Bill Kennedy Way, which is up here in this corner, we're moving more to the south side of the Beltline. We're going to get to hear from Paul Relay about some projects in this area, but as many of you know, Madison Yards, the Larkin, Southern Dairies, all these projects are coming online in the area. It's almost $500 million worth of private investment just within this area right here at Bill Kennedy and Memorial. As we go south on the trail, this is in an interim state, which means that you can bike it or walk it, but it's not the paved path that you see at Ponce City Market. So we're seeing a lot of housing projects with a little bit of commercial between Glenwood and Boulevard. And then around Milton and the Peoplestown area, really another 3 to 4 projects in the pipeline that are mainly multifamily. So it's really exciting that in an area that we haven't seen as much private investment, we have very close to, over $500 million in the pipeline for that portion of the trail. It is a trail that we're actively seeking construction dollars. Portions of it are up for the federal build grant, which we'll hear about later this fall. And then moving to the South Side Trail West, that's another portion that we have under construction. And it goes behind an exciting development project called Pittsburgh Yards that the Annie E. Casey Foundation has been pursuing for nearly a decade. And their passion was to build that development in partnership and with input from the surrounding Pittsburgh community. And so they are at a point where later this fall, they will be opening probably 100 co-working spaces and micro spaces for small business in that one site right off University Avenue, with the Beltline literally under construction, hoping to open in the late spring or early summer. And then many of you have probably been to the West Side Trail, which is near Lee and White, which we have one of the businesses here with us today. And it has been completed for a while. And that public infrastructure investment of the West Side Trail has catalyzed an area that probably 3 years ago did not have a lot of development projects in the pipeline. And now we're seeing over $500 million on this portion of the trail in the pipeline. Mixed use, housing, some really creative projects. Many of you are familiar with the Met. I think they did a session for you guys not too long ago. So the redevelopment of the Met. Cut Rate Box is working. Urban Realty is working on the Cut Rate Box building to do 100,000 square feet of office. So it'll be some of the newest office in Southwest following the phase 2 at Lee and White. So we're really excited about how public infrastructure continues to catalyze private investment and the role that we get to play in that. And there's a picture of Bill Kennedy Way, the improvements we have underway. And then one last project and area just to move around the clock to the west side and northwest is we are under construction in partnership with PATH for the Beltline connection to Centennial Olympic Park. This will then connect beside the old community food bank building and then proceed up Marietta Boulevard. So having that under construction is just really exciting for our team and what it means to connecting those residents to the job centers in downtown Atlanta is also really exciting. And here we have finished the bridge right adjacent to Northside. If you haven't seen it yet, it looks fabulous. I do want to mention just briefly more MARTA Atlanta sequencing scenario. There's not a lot of updates, so if you've been following this, we're just proceeding with working with MARTA to partner around the Streetcar East extension. But it's definitely something we're very excited about and very aggressive about advancing transit around the Atlanta Beltline. And just really quickly, I wanted to mention, I know you've seen some of our awesome signs. We've gotten international press for some of the COVID messaging, and just wanted to show you kind of, we've gone virtual. We've created a resource guide for businesses and are just really working to even shift major events like the Lantern Parade to this COVID environment. So we're really excited. We hope that all of you will put a lantern in your house, outside on your porch, and celebrate with us at the end of September. And to finish, I just wanted to share some before and afters. It's always really incredible. I know we live in the now, but it's great to see where we've come from. And so here is historic Fourth Ward Park before. And this is even an older picture because you can see the masquerade still standing. Here is looking at Ponce City Market and then the development of the old Fourth Ward Park. And then these are some great images over on the West Side Trail. For those of you that haven't been over there, it is really a fabulous trail. It's not as busy as the East Side Trail. And so, you know, I love taking my kiddos out there, teaching them to ride their bike, and just experience that part of the Beltline. So I think we were gonna hold questions. Let's go on to our panel questions. This is the quarry. This is how it looks now. They're filling it with water. It puts us into top 10 city for water reservoirs, so that's really exciting too. And that is it for my Beltline update, and we will move into our panel discussion. So we wanted to start, guys, with what is your favorite place to visit on the Beltline? I know it's a toughie.
I'll go first. I should probably say something over on the west side since that's where Wild Heaven is, but a personal favorite for a while has been the Lady Bird Grove and Mess Hall patio, just north, I think, of Krog Street Market on the East Side Trail. Love the vibe out there.
I will say that I'm such a Beltline junkie that I love every part of the Beltline, including the new Bobby Jones Beltline Connector Trail that I use just about every morning. But I'm a big fan of going from that through Piedmont Park to the Beltline on my bike and having a beer somewhere over there. And now I'm migrating to the west side and having beers over there.
What about you, Ashani?
Yeah, so that is tough, but I'm gonna have to say I just discovered the Met on Saturday in a search for Butterly biscuits, and unfortunately they had run out of the biscuits by the time I got there, and I hear they're only open on Wednesdays and Saturdays, so I can't go today, but I'm going to attempt to go back. But when I was there on Saturday, I was just amazed by just everything that's happening in that space. And another old-time favorite of mine is Serpa's, which I don't know if that technically counts as being on the Beltline, but I love their salmon chips.
Perfect. And Paul, we hear you have a rocket that you've placed on the Beltline. We'd like to hear a little bit more about this.
I do. We like to have fun with real estate, and we've been fortunate enough over the years, because of my industrial background, in buying industrial buildings, and all of a sudden now they just so happen to be on the Beltline. One of them is up on a hill at Boulevard and the Beltline, which is currently a movie studio. CBS films the show MacGyver in there. So I found a rocket ship that I used to play on as a kid, that was at a Howard Johnson's motor lodge, a motel that was at Northside and 75. And I found it buried in some kudzu on the west side off Bolton Road. Bought it, restored it. She looks beautiful, and she needed a home. And old school Atlanta people remember this rocket. So anyway, I restored it, and it's now sitting up on a hill at Boulevard and the Beltline. And the purpose of the rocket, and we're going to continue hopefully to do some kind of 3D art coming out of the hill, but is to bring people to continue from the east side and go and see cool things and keep bringing them to the south side and back around. So we want the rocket as an attraction to keep coming.
Great. Yeah, and I think that's a little bit about what we're going to focus on some today, is this theme of, you know, the South Side is really exciting, and a lot of our developers and businesses today on the panel have invested in South Atlanta and are going to share some of their stories. So why don't we start by each of you telling us about your firm, your organization, and how COVID, I mean, we're in the midst of COVID, how that's affected your business and what you do. Nick, you want to start?
Sure. So we're Wild Heaven Beer. I'm actually sitting on our patio at our Avondale Estates original location. So we have 2 breweries and tap rooms and I guess patios here in Atlanta, here in Avondale. This is sort of the home office, if you will, where we make most of our beer. You see behind me the emergency drinking beer logo. So this is where we make like the main stuff. And then we invested in the West End and became a part of the Lee and White development. That's actually a much bigger project for us. It's a 21,000 square foot building where we have event spaces, a restaurant, tap room, 12,000 square feet overlooking the West Side Trail there, and next to some really wonderful businesses that we kind of make like a little fun party zone in a way, although not so much at the moment. To COVID, I'll just say this, you know, breweries are, I think, one of the only places that people feel like they can safely go right now that are sort of like a fun go out thing because, well, and at least in our case, because we have big outdoor areas and open air. And so we're able to kind of function in a more safe way. So it's been interesting to be sort of one of the better options for at least getting out of the house for a minute. And we've had a really lot of great feedback on that. And so the things that are functional here during this crisis are going really well for us. We're selling more beer in stores because that's where people are going to get their beer. They're not going to bars and restaurants. But yeah, bars and restaurants, which means like draft beer for us, those sorts of things are pretty much zeroed out right now. And, you know, there's some other things that we can't do. So we're alive, but it's by no means easy. You know, we've really tried to live out our motto, by, you know, serve your neighbor has been part of what we're all about from the beginning. And so we've raised money for some of our furloughed employees. We've given out free hand sanitizer at both our locations for quite a while. We raised some money for the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship here in Atlanta, which invests in Atlanta's Black entrepreneurs. We developed a whole beer project that's an ongoing thing for that. And so we found some ways to get really involved and try to just be a benefit. Our hope is that wherever we are, even if you're not into beer, you're just happy we're in your community, and it just feels like an obligation for breweries.
Great. What about you, Ashani?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Kara. We go way back, and it's exciting to hear the update on the Beltline. It's been a while since I was a part of AB 67, but you know, it's just good to sort of hear the work that's going on, both sort of on the outside, but also on the inside. In terms of the Atlanta Affordable Housing Fund, as you mentioned, we just opened for business in January, and there has not been a dull moment. We're you know, working our way through raising money. We've raised between 5 and 6 million. And really, we see ourselves as being a conduit to which through which impact investors, the philanthropic community, corporations can really come together to make strategic investments into affordable housing. As we know, there is a pretty big deficit. I'm happy to hear the Beltline is a third of the way through its goals, but there's so much to be done, and we just simply see ourselves as one tool within that larger toolbox. There's a broader ecosystem, and we're just hoping to expand it by bringing more folks to the table so that we can all play a role in working against the issues related to housing affordability. Certainly, affordable housing is more than just the unit, and there's other layers and other factors that go into that process. And so it's ultimately about making sure that we are creating healthy communities across our region, which will ultimately benefit our region.
No, that's great. And that's what we talk about a lot at ABI, especially on the economic development side. We can't build ourselves out of this crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Our affordable housing goals are not enough. And so we've all got to work together. And I know you're going to talk a little bit more about that too, but we also have to make sure that people have access to workforce training so that they can make enough money to live in even just an affordable unit. Because we definitely have portions of the Beltline that people cannot afford an affordable unit. So, we are trying to think through those complexities, especially on the economic development side. Thank you so much. Paul, talk about the real estate industry and just, how things have been. I'd love to hear about your organization, kind of how you've had to pivot and all of that. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry.
You're awesome.
Sorry. We have been, everything's been going okay. Our tenants have been hanging in there, paying rent. We have a lot of, we have some movie studios and film production facilities. I can tell you that they are eager, while they're also paying rent, which is a good thing. They are eager to start back production, and they're figuring out a way to do that. They realize that there's no content out there and everybody's tired of watching the same thing. So the movie industry is exciting, and they're eager to go. We're lucky enough to have some property at University Avenue on the Beltline next to the Casey Foundation project, and also in the Armour Otley area, and then some stuff on Boulevard. So currently we are trying to evaluate those properties and figure out long-term what we are gonna do with them. Again, we like to have fun with real estate, so we'd love to do some adaptive reuse, loft office, mixed use residential, have breweries, have fun things on the Beltline. So we're currently kind of evaluating what to do with some of these properties.
Great. And Paul, y'all have been an investor on the South Side for a long time. Can you talk about what has attracted you guys to making investment on the South Side of the city?
Yes, I will be, and a train is going by right now, so hopefully that's not. I will tell you that it wasn't, we got lucky. And sometimes that's what happens in real estate. We've owned on the South Side for a while, and because we liked the property, and the Beltline kind of came to us. So we realized that we have an obligation to the community figure out a higher and better use for a lot of these properties. So our problem is we are impatient. I want this Beltline to be done immediately so we can really have a grand plan for just making the whole loop come together. So again, we're kind of figuring out what to do, but I love the South Side. The East Side is great, and we used to own Southern Dairies. We just sold it to Jamestown, but we were there for 25 years and just watched that whole market emerge, and it's just It's fascinating. So I love the vibe over there, but each section of the Beltline is special and unique. So the west side is once you get past where Nick is, it's beautiful with old growth oak trees, and you're riding your bike through a forest. So it's exciting to me that each part of the Beltline has a very unique look and feel to it. Anyway.
Yeah, that's great. So Nick, could you also kind of talk a little bit about the same thing? What attracted your business to consider a location on the West Side Trail? We're definitely in the economic development department seeing increased interest from businesses. A lot of East Side Trail businesses that, you know, are moving down there because of rents. But we're also, you know, a lot of people in the room today, in our virtual room, are representing a lot of these clients. So can you talk about, you know, maybe even what your initial thoughts were about moving to the West Side and how those have even changed since you've been there?
Sure. Yeah. And in fact, what had us looking around was the need for expansion and to just grow the company. And we weren't looking in Georgia. And the reason for that is that Georgia's beer laws had been very restrictive on what breweries could do. I won't get into the detail of that, but once that changed in the fall of 2017, we were able to shift our focus to, is there an opportunity here in town? And obviously we'd seen what happened on the East Side Trail. And so I got to give credit to our colleague brewery, Monday Night Brewing, who was the first to make a commitment over there on the West Side Trail at the Lee and White development. So we found out about it through them. And the vision was to have kind of a community of kind of similar businesses that could create a bit of a destination. And obviously just believing in the idea of what the Beltline has been doing really from day one. I'm like Paul, a bit of a junkie, a bit of a fan of the Beltline, and the opportunity to be front and center on a new section with no illusions that the West Side Trail would have the type of traffic anytime soon that the East Side Trail would have. But the real estate deal was strong enough that even a fraction of what was happening on the East Side Trail would still be a huge boon to a business like ours, because most breweries locate in light industrial zones. And what that means is we're not typically getting a lot of, you know, passerby traffic on foot or bike or whatever else. And so any opportunity to have a space like that at a really, really good square footage rate for us was kind of in a no-brainer category. And in fact, I think about 5 different breweries were hoping to get the building that we got. So for us, it was probably about a year too early, but I'll just say that we understood that the long-term potential, I won't say once in a lifetime, but it felt kind of close to that. And that if we skip this opportunity, we would really, really regret it.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Ashani, you've worked in the affordable housing arena for nearly 20 years. I'd love to hear from you just kind of an overview for our audience today about, you know, what has been happening. I know a lot of the different housing groups, as you mentioned earlier, coming together to work more closely together. And how do you think these efforts are working to support more affordability within the city?
Well, certainly in the climate that we're in, just with respect to examining how we manage through a pandemic, through COVID, certainly how we manage through racial equity issues has really brought a forefront and a spotlight on how we address housing, right? They're all related. And so, you know, I think over time we have felt the pressures from the market in terms of the loss of affordable housing units, the rising costs of housing, the fact that rents have been increasing steadily, significantly more than wages, which has just created downward pressure. And there's just been a growing need for our community, our stakeholders to come together. House ATL has done a great job in just getting everyone on the same page across sectors, bringing all stakeholders together. In fact, I was on a meeting yesterday as a part of a subcommittee called the Funders Collective, where funding institutions that are focused on affordable housing come together. We have an opportunity to coordinate our investments, to talk about how we, what we're doing, what products we have, how they can sort of how we can co-invest in opportunities together, which is huge. And I think it's important as we look at this as a workforce issue that affects us all. We all have a role to play, and so the recent events that we've been focusing on has just really provided an opportunity for us to really step up from a leadership perspective. I think we have a lot of political will that has created some policies to really help us bring down barriers, and all that is important. ULI had a role to play, which is sort of how the fund was really birthed through David Allman and Mark Pollack coming together through their work with and leadership with ULI to say, hey, what is the role that the private sector can play? How can we leverage their expertise and bring more individuals, more talents, more resources to the table as we work towards solutions for affordable housing? Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. And Paul, you mentioned earlier just that opportunity for in your space and in your industry to be creative. Could you talk about what that process is like, building the vision for a development with the community where it's going to be located in mind? Kind of what that process is for you guys, and how you build authentic developments that are true to the communities where they're going to exist.
Well, again, I think that the stuff that we do is adaptive reuse, properties that you can pull up to on a bike, you can walk to, you're not taking an elevator, and you're not in a parking deck, and you have the opportunity to go outside and walk. And so to us, it's all about creating a special work environment. Nick said we don't do residential, so we're just focused on the commercial. And there are only so many little pockets of commercial along the Beltline. So I do think, like Nick said, you only got so many spaces that you can locate a brewery. And then you go to a residential pocket, and then you go to another small commercial pocket. So with the properties that we own, Southern Dairies was very cool, and people, they wanted to be there. And because it was by the Beltline, it was a cool structure, and we rarely had vacancy in that building over 25 years. Obviously with Jim Irwin, the project that he did across from Ponce City Market, where you have major corporations, Starbucks, Blackstone, moving into an office building there. The building leased up almost immediately because it's a better work environment. People can walk to work. They can take a bike to work. They can take a bike from there and be on the west side. You got a little gravel patch, but you can be there. When it's all done, they can be at Ponce City Market and get on a bike and be at Nick's place on the west side in 20 minutes. If you have an Edison electric bike that you'll see all over the Beltline, you can be there in about 8 minutes. But I just think the Beltline offers a super special opportunity to be in a creative, fun, feel-good work environment.
That's great. And to that point, Nick, can you talk a little bit about that from a business perspective? Like, what are some of the benefits to your business just from being located on the Beltline?
Yeah, one of the things that we're lucky with over at the Lee and White development is we have, I think it's 538 parking spots, and it's sort of the main entry point in and out of the West Side Trail. In fact, we refer to this idea of the funnel that kind of is this path between a few of the buildings, right where all the businesses, most of them are all there. And, being it's almost like beachfront real estate in a way. We're where people want to come anyway. If you're going to do the West Side Trail, you're probably going to either pass by the Lee and White development, or you're going to just start and end there anyway. You can eat, you can drink, there's multiple options, there's room to bring your kids. And so, we'd love to believe that we can function simply on just fans of Wild Heaven wanting to show up from wherever they are in Metro Atlanta, and that'll be all we'd ever need. And we have a lot of that, but it's incredibly beneficial to be in a bit of a nexus where people just want to be and hang out, and to be part of creating, another fun, cool environment. There was some very visionary work done on Lee and White. That it's got an open container type of ordinance, so you're able to, there's a distillery there, American Spirit Works. So if you come together with, say, a friend or a partner, and somebody wants a cocktail and the other person wants a beer, you can kind of go back and forth between the facilities and sit at a table together. And so, we were just very struck by the idea of just a destination that is just going to be where people come to relax and have fun. Breweries are different than bars. You can go to a bar in any mood. You might be having a bad day and you just need to go get a drink or just get a meal. People tend to come to breweries when they're in a good mood. And Lee and White is like an expanded version of that. It's like a little quick mini life celebration. It may just be a couple hours on a Saturday. But we feel like it's sort of just a fun place, and we're happy to be a part of it. The joking name of Lee and White is Malt Disney. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. And just to say to the audience, if you have any questions for our panelists, if you want to go ahead and put them in the Q&A bar. I've got one more question before we move to audience Q&A. So if you want to go ahead and be putting some questions in the bar, we will be so delighted to answer those. So Ashani, like you said, you've served on Atlanta Beltline's, Atlanta Beltline Partnership's Young Leaders Board, AB 67. I know you're intimately familiar with the project. So just from all you've experienced and all you're a part of related to housing, what are the things that give you hope for the future of affordability around the Beltline and in the city in general?
Ooh, that's a big question. And I would not be truthful if I didn't say I have not been, like many Atlantans that have been frustrated by the affordability challenges around the Beltline. I decided to wear my Beltline shirt today because you can't see it, but at the bottom of it, it says Atlanta Beltline, where Atlanta comes together. And, you talked earlier about the potential that comes in reconnecting neighborhoods, that connectivity, being able to create spaces and opportunity-rich neighborhoods where everybody benefits. And so I think there's hope because I think of it as we're late, but it's not too late. I think there's still an opportunity, particularly in the climate that we're in, to have conversations to make sure that that housing is affordable in a way in which people are not sacrificing healthcare, in a way in which people are not sacrificing educational choices or other essential things that help to chart paths to success. And so, it's important to have conversations like this and to continue to sort of push ourselves to bring down those layers to make sure that there are spaces, gathering spaces for everybody who would like to be a part of it, and that people are not displaced. So from that perspective, I think I see the Beltline as being one of our greatest assets here in Atlanta, and it should be something that we all can benefit from.
That's great. And I think to your point, it is critical that, I'm a citizen of the city of Atlanta. It's our Beltline. And so it is our place, all of us, to keep the project accountable, to get involved. We have a quarterly briefing coming up on September 10th. Go to your neighborhood meetings and just make sure that we're all stepping up and voicing concerns, but also seeing the potential for these incredible projects around the city. So,
and you know what else I want to add in terms of, you know, ways that folks can get engaged and sort of learn more about what's happening within the affordable housing space, not only locally, but even from a broader national context. Check out a video called Segregated by Design, which really sort of gives a very, very amazing context on sort of why we have issues related to wealth gaps, issues related to why our neighborhoods are set up the way they are, how we can start to promote neighborhoods to be more inclusive, healthier neighborhoods, in whatever neighborhood on any given point of the Beltline, right? The second thing I wanted to encourage folks to do, there is a Atlanta Regional Housing Forum that happens quarterly. And if you Google Atlanta Regional Housing Forum, this is really a great go-to resource for just engaging in what's happening within the affordable housing space here in Atlanta. Lots of stakeholders are a part of it. The topics typically vary, but it's just a really great opportunity to plug into understanding the context of what we're dealing with here locally.
awesome, great.
Hey, can I add one? Can I add
Yes.
one note to that?
Absolutely.
We tend to, again, I wish it was done now. I'm glad it's not, because I would never work. I'd be on the Beltline every day. But I think in the long term, look at this thing. We need to think bigger than the Beltline. Again, there's only so much real estate on the Beltline, but the connector trails, the kudzu line, the Bobby Jones Trail, those to me also, they're not Beltline proper, but to me they are Beltline, and there's tremendous opportunity around that. I would love one day to be able to get on the Beltline, get on the, excuse me, Proctor Creek Trail, and then hit the Riverlands project that is a trail project for the Chattahoochee River, and have all this connectivity, and there are tremendous housing opportunities on the fingers of the Beltline. So yes.
No, I think that's great. And to your point, Paul, earlier too, I mean, when we did some community survey, our big community survey a couple years ago, I mean, that's what we heard from people: build more faster. We also know that, you know, the way things are, it also puts a tremendous amount of development pressure on the portions of the Beltline that are built, which hurts our affordability crisis, right? So I think that that is a big reason our pivot has been to build more faster. And that's why we have so many live construction projects. And then we had a question from the audience about the Proctor Creek Trail, which, Paul, you just brought up. You know, we are focused, to your point, on building Beltline mainline trail as quick as possible. And so those those are outside of that scope, but we are constantly working with partners to advance those projects as well. And so working with Path Foundation on the connections to Proctor Creek Greenway, to the new West Side Park, all of that are things that we, definitely continue to advance and foster collaboration around. I will say, I showed the picture of the West Side Quarry. The first phase of the park has been underway and is ready, getting ready to open. And so just, keep an ear out for that. I know with COVID, things have slowed down a little bit, but that's going to be an incredible connection for West Side residents and an amenity to them. So we're really excited about the city's been advancing that project with Arthur Blake Foundation, but it's going to be really great. And then we have one other question. Sorry. This is my weakness. Amy wanted to know about a question for Nick. How did did all of you retailers at Lee and White come together and make the decision to congregate, to densify right there, or was it kind of just more grassroots than that?
It was actually pretty intentional. There's at least, 4 of us who are business owners there who are obviously industry colleagues, but had developed more of a personal friendship and trust with each other. And so there was definitely a lot of interest in being there, but the folks that ended up there certainly all shared a vision for what the place could be. And were really comfortable aligning with each other as businesses that we felt like complemented each other and could collaborate, and we do in fact collaborate on a lot of little things and some big things. And so, yeah, I would say there was no man behind the curtain wizard kind of putting it together, but it's also not random who's there together. I don't know if that answers it, but
yeah, no, that's great. We had one other question, just, Paul, you mentioned the bike ride from Pot City Market to the West Side Trail, and they're asking about how safe is that. One thing that I will say is we do have a dedicated force of Atlanta APD that is dedicated to the Beltline. It's called the Path Force. And so all of our open trails, they are, riding their bike along. And then we've also put in the security enhancements on the East Side Trail, as well as the West Side Trail when it was open. All of those lighting and security cameras were in place. The Path Force will say, how safe the Beltline is. A lot of times things that you hear in the news are right off the corridor, but we get blamed that they're, right on the corridor. And a lot of times, that's not the case. So, we do have that Path Force group as well.
Amy?
I'd love to go ahead. I'm sorry.
Amy, this is Scott. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you,
Okay.
Scott.
So I have a question for you, Kara, and maybe while I'm asking, Paul Roulet could pull up on his phone his picture of the rocket, because that is the coolest story. And much about what is culture on the Beltline is art. And I know in your bio, you have the pilot program with the artists and the businesses. Could you go into that just a little bit? Because that is what makes the Beltline such a cool vibe, and what brings people together is the art.
Yeah, absolutely. So I showed the Lantern Parade. That's, one initiative of our arts and culture team as well. They are doing differently this year, larger art pieces. So just get really excited about what they will be producing this fall as part of Art on the Atlanta Beltline. Please check out our website. They're going to be really larger pieces and just much more impactful. So we're really excited. They have year-round programming, concerts. So please check that out. And then our facade program, we piloted at Red's Beer Garden, if any of you have been down on South Boulevard, and AC Clutch Bicycle Shop, which is at RDA across from Ralph David Abernathy, across from the Kroger. And just partnered them with artists to do some incredible upgrades to their storefronts. We will be launching the application for businesses to be considered for the full launch of the program in September, right after Labor Day. So if you're working with businesses, that is one of the businesses that was in the pilot program, use that to leverage, use the grant to leverage their internal build out. So it was a great partnership. But we'd love to have you share that resource with any of the businesses that you're working with.
Well, guys, here, thank you for having me. I don't know if you can see that. You probably can't, but there is the rocket. You can't miss it. Definitely visit the Southside Trail. As far as safe, I'm not sure if you meant violence kind of safe or bicycle riding on some rocks safe. But both of them are, yes, feel completely safe riding that whole segment of the trail. No doubt about it.
Great. And Scott, would you be okay if we just went around and let everybody kind of leave with a closing thought, or we have time?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll sign off.
Okay, great. Nick, you want to go?
Thanks for everybody that's on this call. Thanks for inviting us to be a part of it. We are just honored to be a part of the Beltline, to be in the city of Atlanta, and to hopefully help keep the city moving forward. What I love about Atlanta, probably the most, is that it was flawed in its planning in so many different ways over the decades, but what that has offered us now is the opportunity to kind of remake this city on an ongoing basis. It's affordable. Everything is possible here, and we're just thrilled to be a part of that.
Thanks, Nick. Paul?
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to think big on the Beltline and the surrounding trails and the Chattahoochee River, how to engage that into the Beltline as well. But I think that we have the opportunity, literally, the Beltline could be the greatest project in the United States of America. Matter of fact, I think it probably will when complete. I don't think there's anything that can match it. So we have a really great opportunity here, and hopefully we can pull it off soon.
Ashani?
I would agree with Paul. I think we have a tremendous asset in the Beltline. We just have to continue to push ourselves with courage, with leadership, as we seek to make sure that it's inclusive, as we look at the neighborhood surrounding it as well, and just continue to challenge ourselves and lead with courage, I would say.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. Handing over to you, Scott. We appreciate your time.
Kara, thank you very much for moderating, and we thank Paul, Ashani, and Nick for offering their experiences, and again to our coordinators. And thank you, audience, for participating, and we will look forward to seeing you in September. Take care and be safe.
Thanks, guys.